Coin traders, what is going on? Thanks for joining me for the show. Looking at Algorand ALGO on that ticker. Obviously, an extremely good week for crypto. Bitcoin's at all-time highs, not too far from that 100K mark in the 90s right now. So, been a good week for crypto as a whole. And right now, very nice setup for Algorand with a nice breakout, topping some of the previous highs for resistance here. So, very good signs here. We're going to talk about in the show today what we're expecting next, what current setups are like, and what we can actually expect from here for Algorand ALGO. So do want to start off just looking at this pullback from the trend high back in the middle of March here, where we actually saw prices get over almost to 33 cents. And obviously huge pullback, a big period of accumulation right now. So we're actually starting to round out a very nice bottom here. And that's why this very nice breakout is kind of the confirmation that the bottoms are actually already in right now. And so with a total pullback, we were actually looking down to the lows below the 10-cent mark, unfortunately. Obviously held the close for the candles on top of that, almost just shy of 11 cents. So 10.86 was kind of the closing lows that we were looking at. Big pullback, 60, almost 67%, but that's actually not that bad for the overall altcoin space on this most recent retracement over the last 6 months. But nonetheless, from the bottom to the current trend high right now, 54% pullback. From the top right now, we're actually looking at about an 11, just over 11% pullback. But right now, if we actually look at prices, we're sitting on top of a very big zone of support that we broke through. So we're going to go ahead and draw those price marks. We're looking at a closing level of resistance, now hopefully support at 14.58, all the way down to a low end of about 13.02. So a big zone of support. Likely we will see the price of Algorand on the retracement get stuck up in this level. And the thing that's actually really nice about the setup right now is that if we go ahead and zoom in on the current setup, we're looking at a very nice full bullish cross and flip of these exponential moving averages. So we have 12 on top, we have the 26 nicely in the middle, and then the 50 on the bottom. So what's significant about this is that if we actually go ahead and zoom out and look at the move from the pullback, this is the first time, with the exception of a very quick little blip here back at the end of September, where we saw this same sort of setup, but obviously immediately dumped back below that. And once we had this price flip and fail to hold, we knew that the downtrend was going to continue for a little bit longer. So right now, that's why it's so critical that when we actually do see a pullback, we do maintain support on top of this very strong exponential moving average line and zone. But what's also significant and great to see right now is that we have plenty of room for a buffer to actually see prices pull back. So even from the current point down to the lowest level of support, basically right around the 13-cent mark would be about 10%. So, I mean, for algo, that's kind of nothing. But, anyway, nonetheless, still a very big retracement pullback. So if we do want to look at a Fibonacci retracement from the low of this move to the current trend high, then effectively we do have a very nice period of support as well here for the exponential moving average, the zone of price level support, and then also the Fibonacci retracement. So all the way down to the bottom of this level would be about the 61.8, which is coming in at 12.82. Don't necessarily think we're going to get that far, but plenty of support to the downside. Right now, still holding support at the 38.2, which is at 14.18 cents. Now, I want to flip over into the 2-day, talk about this. Do really always like the 2-day charts for crypto here. And one of the reasons why is just how nicely these exponential moving averages are a very complete guide, and also how things just kind of fit a lot better. And as always with technical indicators, you want to use what works and use it until it is invalidated. So right now we know that on the 2-day, a lot of the exponentials are working. So big point of resistance, once he's actually flipped anyway, big point of resistance, got stuck up, briefly broke this, but then rejected. And then, like we said, once we lost support of these EMAs, kind of back flipping it into resistance again. So kind of a false breakout here. Now, very healthy breakout. And so if we go ahead and look at the current move, we can see that we did have a very nice candle, print a close on top of the 50, and then obviously the huge follow through that we do always like to see with massive amount of volume here. So if we go ahead and zoom out, this is actually the most amount of bullish volume that we have seen since basically about 6 months ago at the end of April here. So very nice move. And then obviously looking at the exponentials as well, very close to seeing a nice bullish cross of these after being completely bearish ever since the initial trend high and breaking support of the exponential moving averages, which is when it did flip into resistance, and then path of least resistance was to the downside at that point. So sentiment's really high right now for crypto, and specifically Bitcoin, obviously, since we're at new all-time highs, but that does shift sentiment into a lot of other altcoins and start getting projects looked at. And we know that typically we do see the front runners, Bitcoin first, the bigger market caps, Ethereum, and then we do start lagging. But we know that after seeing bottom confirmations come in, we do know that the worst is over and we are starting that bull cycle. And now it's just kind of a matter of time. But right now, really what we're looking at is just slowly starting to round out this longer term bottom. And eventually we are going to make our way back up, because typically that is what we're going to find. And we're not necessarily expecting just some sort of huge pump and rally, although obviously that would be nice. But realistically, with the altcoin space, especially as we do have a lot of these other altcoins starting to rally, we're going to see some growing sentiment and change in a lot of these trends. And that's really going to provide a lot of upside momentum for a lot of this crypto space. So now I do want to zoom out here and just talk about how important this overall zone and level is, because if we actually go ahead and zoom out, look left, obviously like we talked about the two previous periods of resistance, but then a big period of sideways trading. So the heart line was actually kind of right in the middle of this overall zone between 13 and 14.5. Looking left, this is when the big period of consolidation happened, actually, before we had a huge explosive rally up to the trend high at 33 cents. And then obviously looking left even farther, we do have the period of resistance that actually stuck up on the initial bounce coming off of the low that we set at the middle of June. But from a price standpoint, we are kind of at some of the lows still, so that's why we do have to zoom all the way back even farther, pretty much to the middle of March of 2020 to see where we were actually at COVID price lows down to this level. So as you can see, big period of support along this line as well, right around the 14-15 cent mark, which is where we're at right now. So that's why zooming out, you can see price levels are right in this overall zone. So hopefully this does be a very nice guide of support, considering that looking at the price levels we drew for the zone of support, that's pretty much right where all of this big accumulation period happened, especially with closing support for this overall area before the trend took off, happening right at that 14.5 cent mark. Now, flipping over here into the weekly, and specifically, we can just see how these shorter term EMAs are extremely relevant. So I can look at the 12 and 26 resistance points, big resistance point. And with that on the current weekly that just closed, we did have a nice close on top of the 26, which was important since it was resistance this whole way down on this move. So right now, if we can see the current weekly candle close on top of this and confirm it as support, right now, we're looking at the 26 EMA on the weekly being 14.08. But along with that, we also know that the 50 period is still a very big resistance point. So if we even go ahead and turn off the 12 and 26, or excuse me, I turned off the wrong ones. There we go, the 12 and 26, we are looking at resistance point, and then obviously right now, big resistance point. So what we need to see is a big break and close on top of this 50 period EMA. This is also going to be significant because if we do look left, there's a big period of resistance up overhead, not only based on what we're seeing right now with 14.66, which is where we're getting stuck up on the current week with a lot of closing resistance still right now, but up overhead, big level of closing resistance coming in at that level right at 15.96. So just shy of the 16 cent mark. Looking over to the left here, big period of support slightly just below it, but we did have 3 weeks maintaining right around the same levels and then confirming it as support. So a big point, once we get above 16, that should indicate a very nice upside move. And then with that, that'll also help these exponential moving averages flip back into a very nice bullish formation. Because as we can see, we're looking at the 12 and 26 getting a lot closer together right now, which is essential when we do want to look at the direction of a positive upside move, especially with path of least resistance back to the upside. So seeing growth, confirmation, and follow through has been key and essential. And that's why it's so important for the bulls right now to be able to maintain closing support on top of this 26 period EMA, and then continue to see follow through and break the 50. And then that'll actually have the directional change heading upside, especially after so many weeks and weeks and weeks of just downside resistance and getting stuck up here. So really, we were looking at price getting stuck up since mostly the middle of May. So for the whole summer, very struggling downtrend, very frustrating for price action, obviously. But just being able to see this one very nice bullish candle come in and completely knock out and invalidate this whole series of candles since basically the middle of July, where we were looking at. So when price got stuck up in this overall zone, one candle came in and broke out all these weeks of more or less sideways trading here for Algorand. Now, I do want to look at volume too, because if we go ahead and turn on volume, we go ahead and zoom out, you can just see how minimal it was and almost non-existent over the summer and pretty much right during that big pullback accumulation period. So the fact that now we're starting to see a lot more bullish volume come in and volume altogether as a whole is obviously a very good sign on the last moves that we had where we were looking at nice upside growth, huge increase in bullish volume, huge increase in bullish volume. So that is what we are going to be expecting from here. And obviously with the moves and bullish sentiment flipping from last year on the spring rally and the fall and spring rally, we know that that's pretty much what we're going to be expecting carrying out this next nice bullish cycle. And zooming out on this weekly, you can just see how far apart these exponential moving averages were. So the fact that now we're getting so close, so tight together is going to be a very good sign that they are going to flip and direction is going to continue upside, because after having such far gaps between the exponential moving averages, a brief, almost not quite full bullish flip on this weekly, but we are going to be expecting that, especially since they haven't really pulled back and retraced that much after this initial rejection, confirming a bearish exponential moving average setup. So overall, no immediate expectations of a huge bullish pump, especially with this RSI peaking and spiking, retracing now, because we know that every single time that the RSI has gotten overextended, do need a period of sideways trading more or less to actually confirm a period of cool down before we see the next leg to the upside. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now in these upside directions. And so nothing necessarily expected to have a big blast off and pump, but just based off of what has happened in these type of moves in the past, pretty much what we would love to see, especially on this initial move. Sideways consolidation, retracement, confirming exponential moving average support on the daily, which we still have plenty of room to do. And then from there, continuing on that trend. So pretty much what we're going to be expecting in that instance, holding support, continuing on, consolidating, and then continuing on again. Things are definitely shaping up very nicely right now in crypto land. So exciting times, and obviously a super exciting year-end bullish season coming up ahead. But with that, that is going to wrap up the show. Would appreciate any questions, comments, issues, disagreements, all that stuff down below if you do have any, or reach out over on X at @coin_trades. If you did enjoy the show, please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not done so just yet. But otherwise, that's going to do it. So stay safe, take care, and I'll catch you back in the next video.